Pinpoint Weather University, sponsored by Gaston Roofing.
Welcome into Pinpoint Weather University. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson here on Queen City News Plus. Got a really exciting episode for you today. I also want to give a big shout out to our YouTube viewers as well. We've got a lot of viewers on YouTube, but download the Queen City News Plus app, man. It's a good app to have. Not only do we have this original show, Pinpoint Weather University, but we have several other original shows as well that you can get tuned into, like Order of the Court. I love that show. It's Khalif Rhodes, Brian Blakely talking about some of the big court cases that happen across the nation and here locally and analyzing those. We get more Carolina sports live action as well on the Queen City News Plus app. Extra laps, they talk a lot more about NASCAR, analyzing that too. So as a NASCAR fan myself, I enjoy that. So download the Queen City News Plus app. It's a good tool to have. Go to Roku, look up Queen City News Plus, and you can find it on there. It's just a good tool to not only get your local news, but all the other original shows that you can probably watch anyway on other apps and other features as well that you might have. So let's go ahead and get started with our fire episode. We've had some fire episodes here, no pun intended, but we are going to talk more about wildfire season here on this episode of Pinpoint Weather University. And I'm honored to be joined by Philip Jackson. He was the public information officer with the North Carolina Forest Service. And Philip, before we get to wildfires, we've got to talk about a busy week for you guys ahead. You guys are at the North Carolina State Fair there in Raleigh. Obviously, it's always a good time, but it's crazy to think that it's already here. The year's just blown by. Talk about why you guys come out to the North Carolina State Fair and just what the week ahead looks like for you guys there.
Yeah, so we've had a pretty large exhibit with the State Fair the last several decades, just being as part of the Department of Agriculture. But our display, really, we try to touch on all of the programs and services that are offered by the North Carolina Forest Service. Just a little bit about our exhibit. It features a amphitheater area where we present several programs, educational state forest programs that can be found at each of the educational state forests across the state. We have aviation section, which displays a helicopter as well as a single engine air tanker. Folks get to meet with pilots and find out how we use the aircraft, how we fight fire with it. From there it goes, our exhibit translates into a heavy equipment area where we have several bulldozers, Type 6 engines, and other heavy pieces of machinery that we use to fight fire. Again, folks can talk with the personnel who operate that equipment, who use it on a daily basis to fight fire, as well as other forest management practices. And then, of course, we have a large building that has multiple other areas of service, such as forest health, career and recruitment, and things of that sort. So the State Fair is really a time where we're able to showcase just about everything that we do into one type setting here at the State Fair. And then, of course, everyone's favorite wildfire prevention icon, Smokey Bear. He's going to be out and about every day this week.
Man, that is the icon, I feel like, for wildfire awareness. Smokey the Bear, that is awesome. I was waiting. I was like, I got to make sure Smokey is there. But that is awesome. You guys just bring out all the equipment and all the personnel just to make sure that you're raising wildfire awareness. And I'm sure the kids enjoy that as well. I'm sure they enjoy the things that you put on there at the North Carolina State Fair. The North Carolina State Fair, of course, it runs from October 16th to October 26th. And North Carolina Forest Service will be out there and all the rides as well. Do want to get into more wildfire awareness too, Philip. So wildfire season starting here in the Carolinas. Just talk about when we have wildfire seasons here in the Carolinas.
Sure. So right now we're currently in fall wildfire season, which typically kicks off early October and runs through early December. So we'll be in it for the next couple of months. And then we also have a spring wildfire season, which typically runs March through early to mid-May during the green up process. But depending on weather patterns and the amount of precipitation that we get throughout the winter months, it's not uncommon for us to see wildfires extend through December, and we may have some January and February as well, depending on those precipitation levels.
And when it comes down to just wildfire seasons in the Carolinas, what kind of conditions do we need for wildfires to form, and just how do they start?
Well, in terms of ignition source, primarily, unfortunately, that's due to people. 99% of our fires here in North Carolina are directly related to human activity. Most common is debris burning, which is just folks cleaning up their yards by way of fire, burning leaves and branches and twigs and things of that sort. But campfires, vehicle use, and machine use, those are all common factors as well. So in terms of the cause and why they happen, it's largely due to people, unfortunately, not always demonstrating a good situational awareness. But in terms of conditions, we're in the fall right now. Everyone knows that as the leaves change, when that process is over with, the leaves are going to fall. And so there's a new fuel source on the ground to help fires not only spread, but burn more intense. And so fall time, we typically lose the humidity, which means conditions are a little drier. There's less moisture in the air, which leads to the further drying of those fuels. And so, again, when you take the human cause sources of wildfires that we have mixed in with the typical fall conditions, the dryness and that leaf litter, you're going to have more fires. And then in your particular viewing area, as you're getting into the western North Carolina part of the state, Hurricane Helene, even though we've been more than a year removed from that storm, the impacts are still very much there. There's still a lot of timber on the ground that has dried out and died over the last year. And so as long as there's significant storm debris still present in North Carolina, that wildfire risk is going to be even more increased in those areas.
Yeah, it was very active in the Western Carolinas. This is actually video right here from some of those fires in Western North Carolina last year. Just wild stuff. They were impacted by Helene, had all the devastation of the flooding and all the damage there. Then wildfire season just came in hot, literally, unfortunately. But luckily, those fires were able to be put out. A lot of property was able to be saved last year during that. And you mentioned that most of our fires start from human cause. So what's some wildfire safety tips that you have for folks as they burn as we go into the wildfire season?
Yeah, you definitely want to keep an eye on the weather and refrain from burning on dry, windy days. As we talked about earlier, humidity levels tend to decrease this time of year, and so there's less moisture in the air. So you're going to have drier days just naturally as a result. But anytime you have 2-3 weeks without any rain or precipitation, the chance of wildfire is going to increase because the conditions are just right for it. So folks really just need to pay attention to the weather and demonstrate good situational awareness, good decision making when choosing to burn, to not do it on those dry, windy days. But then they also need to stay with their fire. I can't tell you how many times we come across a debris burn and there's just nobody within any in eyesight distance of it. There's nowhere to be found, and so that's a recipe for that fire to escape. And then, of course, once it escapes, and then it's just a matter of calling 911 and getting resources on quickly as possible. So if you are going to burn, make sure you have a valid burn permit. Be sure to burn on the right days. Days 2 or 3 days following some rain is usually pretty good. And then make sure you stay with that fire through the duration in which you're burning it. And when we say stay with your fire until it's complete, we mean until it's cold to the touch. It's cold and dead. It's black. There's no danger of reignition. And a lot of times, the flame links are no longer there, and therefore the fire's on its way out. It's okay to leave. But reality, as long as there's heat present, as long as there's still hot coals burning, hot briquettes, hot debris, as long as the heat source is still present, then that fire can actually fester for a while. We've seen fires fester days, weeks at a time, even after the burner has felt that it's out. So basically, if it's too hot to touch, then it's too hot to leave, and folks need to make sure that they're putting water on it, they're stirring that contents around with hand tools, and making sure that it's completely out before they leave it, because we see it all the time. A debris burn happens 2-3 weeks ago. We've had no rain. The conditions are dry. And because a heat source has remained present in that area, then it doesn't take much for you get a day like today here in Raleigh. It's pretty windy. Humidity's at least feels a little bit lower. And so when that heat source is still there, and all you need is a little bit of wind to reignite it and carry it someplace it shouldn't be, and now you've got a fire that's spreading pretty quickly. So really and truly, if there's an ignition source present, then the possibility for a wildfire exists.
And you talked about these fires burning for sometimes weeks at a time. Just explain how the fire suppression process works. I know, like you'll see, we'll say in the news the fire is 95% contained, it's 60% contained. But viewers, last year, especially in the Western Carolinas, I got a lot of emails, calls, texts, like, what does that mean? Does that mean, it's 95% contained, but I'm still evacuating? That seems good. Just kind of explain how that fire suppression process works, the fire lines, the different things you guys use to put these massive fires out.
Sure. So when we say containment, we are referring to the area of the fire that no longer possesses a threat or reburn, reignition potential. Essentially, it's cold and dead, and we can move on to something else. So if you hear that a fire is 65% contained, well, that means 65% of it is what we would consider out. The other 35% is still active because there must be a heat source still present. So just to kind of explain containment for you, that's if you hear 10% contained, 50% contained, 75% contained, that is the area of the fire that we are comfortable that it no longer possesses reburn potential. But then getting into just suppression tactics and strategies that we use, we talked about heavy equipment here on display here at the State Fair. So we utilize bulldozers to help cut fire lines into places and get down to bare mineral soil to create a fuel break. So we utilize heavy equipment. We also have we utilize, especially in the mountains, hand crews. Just the topography alone in the mountains may present some challenges when it comes to heavy equipment because you're looking at rocky cliffs and steep slopes and things of that sort. So those alone may not be conducive for heavy equipment. So we may utilize more hand crews, folks just hiking through the woods, roughing it, and then in constructing that hand line using hand tools. Depending on where the fire is, how it's burning, what structures or homes are in its path and threatened, we may use a strategic firing operation, which is basically a backburn. You may have heard burnout, backburn operation, where we'll actually use fire to fight fire. We can get in some of these areas where if we know a fire is going to advance in a certain area or there's a threat in a certain area that we need to eliminate, then we may go ahead and actually burn it up in a controlled, easily managed intensity level. We'll go ahead
Yeah.
and consume those fuels before the wildfire itself gets there. That
Mhm.
way it has nothing left to burn. And then
I
we
found that very
go
I
ahead.
was gonna say I found that very interesting last year. I actually kind of learned that myself. Like we were hearing like, oh, they're setting more fires to try and put the fire out. So I found that very interesting. Learning that last year in the Western Carolinas, that was a big tactic that you guys used.
Yeah, and a lot of people they'll see, and when we do that, we count
Mhm.
that acreage towards the size of the fire. So if the
Yeah.
fire itself is 75 acres, and we've had to burn 25 acres to help gain containment, then the fire is going to show 100 acres.
Mm.
So it may have been 75 acres of the actual wildfire. We burned the other 25, and that's how we get to 100 acres. But then going back to resources that we have at our disposal, we also operate a aviation fleet of about 23 available aircraft, helicopters, planes. We also have a couple of single engine air tankers that we use. And so aviation typically doesn't put the fire out, but we use it to target some of those hotter areas, the areas where the fire is burning more intense, it's advancing quicker. And by dropping suppression on those areas, kind of pre-treating it is what we'll call it, wetting it down, we can slow the progress of that fire until we can get some better resources in those areas. And so aviation doesn't put the fire out typically just because the fires burn so intense. And in a lot of cases, we have ground fire where it's actually burning beneath the surface, but
Mhm.
we can pre-treat areas and we can at least slow it down, those quickly advancing walls.
All right, just want to get a quick break in, Philip, and then we'll come back and talk about what your projections are, what you guys are expecting as we go into the new wildfire season coming up here in just a bit. Right on the other side of the break here on Pinpoint Weather University. Welcome back into Pinpoint Weather University. Still got Philip Jackson with us from the North Carolina Forest Service, the public information officer there. Lastly, Philip, before we go, just wanted to talk about the drought monitor that we have seen here in the Carolinas for the United States Geological Survey. Obviously, we've got some good rain across the eastern Carolinas because of the big nor'easter we had. over the weekend. But we are still seeing a lot of abnormally dry to moderately dry conditions really creeping over the Carolinas. And unfortunately, looking at long range weather data, it looks like we're going to be expecting warm and dry conditions for the next several weeks, if not few months here. We look at the look at the fall season as a whole. So, what are you guys' projections for this upcoming wildfire season? Obviously, in wildfire season now, then we have our other one as we go into early next year. What are you expecting in returns to wildfire danger this year?
Yeah, so we always expect our activity and our risk to increase this time of year, just due to the factors that we talked a little bit earlier. In the fall, the leaves change and then they fall off the trees, and when they fall, there's a fresh fuel source for any wildfire to spread quicker. We also lose the humidity this time of year, and we see drier weather simply because of the humidity levels decreasing, which means there's less moisture in the air and those fuels tend to dry out quicker. So that alone is why we tend to see an increase in wildfire potential, as well as a number of wildfire occurrences. And so, as you mentioned, there's a lot of drought in the forecast. Anytime we string together 2, 3, 4 weeks of time of period of time without any precipitation, then the wildfire risk is going to just increase that much more. The wildfire activity is probably going to increase, and the potential for our wildfires to get larger will be there because of these conditions. And specifically in western North Carolina, those areas that have been hit the hardest by Hurricane Helene, there's still an excessive amount of debris, timber debris still on the ground that's going to act as a fuel for fire. So, really, statewide, people need to be careful during this fall, but especially in western North Carolina, where that increase is going to be greater. Folks really just need to demonstrate good situational awareness, make good decisions when burning, and ultimately apply common sense.
And Hurricane Helene obviously leading to that more concerning wildfire danger for Western North Carolina with all the dead vegetation, down trees and stuff that have been there for over a year now. Explain some of the navigating challenges that you guys had last year. I know you were mentioning that there was fires that would have been much smaller if it wasn't for some of the roads that were damaged there.
Sure. Very active fire season back in the spring coming out of Hurricane Helene. The debris, as you mentioned, is a heavy fuel source available for these fires to burn more intensely, spread quicker, and become larger, more powerful, and more destructive. But then, from an accessibility standpoint, there's still a lot of debris that are on roads, blocking other pathways that we may have typically used in the past to help with our suppression efforts that we talked about earlier. And so, there are roads that are blocked off that we are unable to use, and if our accessibility is limited, then we're going to have to find a new way to navigate the fire area. And as we're doing that, fires are going to continue to spread. They're going to get larger. They're going to be more catastrophic. So the message to the folks are, if on their private property, if there are roads that they have access pathways that are currently blocked or damaged by Hurricane Helene, the quicker we can get those cleared off, the better, because that may be the difference in a fire going 50 acres or 100 acres is how quickly we can get to it and how easily we can access the area.
All right, Philip Jackson with the North Carolina Forest Service Public Information Officer there, and they're going to be spending a week, or about a week and a half, I guess, at the North Carolina State Fair. I cannot wait to hopefully see some of the things you guys have up there. I mean, just all the equipment and all the tools that you guys are showing off. I mean, you guys are showing off everything, the real deal there at the North Carolina State Fair, giving people an idea of what you guys do and some of the challenges you guys have when it comes down to fighting wildfires, and also giving the wildfire awareness and having Smokey the Bear help you guys out as well. So, Philip, thanks for coming on the show with us today, and thanks for all you guys do when it comes down to battling those fires and raising awareness for all of us to make sure that we're staying safe during wildfire season as well.
Thanks, Brandon. It was a pleasure being with you this morning.
All right. Thank you so much, Phil. We'll be talking on the other side of the break. We talked about those leaves and how they're falling off the trees during wildfire season, but they're still in the trees now, and we've got peak coming in the mountains. We already have seen peak colors. We'll talk about that and where we can experience more of those high, nice color trees coming up here in just a little bit on the other side of the break on Pinpoint Weather University. Welcome back into Pinpoint Weather University. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson here on Queen City News Plus. We just got finished speaking with Philip Jackson from the North Carolina Forest Service, Public Information Officer, on the wildfire season upcoming. So hopefully you're able to take away a lot from that, and just be careful during wildfire season. There are numerous penalties that come with starting fires, and if you're not burning your fire correctly, there are penalties that come with it, including fines, prosecution, different things like that. Not going to go over all of them, but it's just obvious stuff. Just be very careful with your fires as we get into the forest fire season here in North Carolina and South Carolina as well. Do want to talk about the fall leaves, though, of the mountains. I tell you what, Brian Christensen, our photojournalist here at Queen City News, did an incredible job the weekend of October 11th, getting us some of those picturesque scenes that we long for in the mountains during this time of year. So this is Saturday, October 11th. Brian Christensen, a photojournalist, he went up there to the mountains and got to go to Linville and got to look at some of those beautiful colors, the reds, the oranges, really popping there. So, I mean, this is just incredible stuff. We think about this time of year and we think, not to mention there's some of the valley fog that we usually see around this time of year. But we think about this time of year, we think of the fall colors. But this time last year, it wasn't the same. It just wasn't, right? We had Helene that rolled through, really ravaged our mountain communities, and it just, you weren't going out to the mountains to view the fall leaves. If you're going out there, you're going out there to help those that were in need. And there's still plenty of folks in need there in the Western Carolinas, and folks are still helping rebuild the community there. But they do want your business. They do want you to come out, and they are open for business and look at some of those fall leaves. I personally was there for a wedding the weekend of October 11th, there at the Overlook Barn in Banner Elk, a beautiful area to have a wedding this time of year, and the traffic was nuts. Folks were really, really getting out there. I mean, there was one point where I think I'll stop for like 5 minutes just because folks are getting out of their cars, the overlooks, looking at some of the scenes. I was so excited about that. It was just exciting to see the mountains so packed. And you walk through Boone, too. You could just see how packed Boone was, and App State wasn't home, so just seeing everybody out and really enjoying the fall leaves was really awesome. And luckily, if you didn't get a chance to do it the weekend of October 11th, I actually think this weekend, October 18th weekend, and into the following week is going to be even better because we're going to have more widespread fall colors to look at. So I do want to get you a look at the fall color report. This was for the weekend of October 11th. So this is the weekend I was just talking about. That was from some of the scenes you just saw from our photojournalist Brian Christensen. But zoom again, the mountains, the Blue Ridge Parkway, that's where the peak fall color is. I mean, it's where it was over the weekend, October 11th there. Spots like Avery County, Ashe County, Watauga County, even as you got down towards the southern half of the Blue Ridge Parkway towards Waynesville. I mean, there was just incredible color along some of those highest elevations. Now, I want to zoom forward, looking at the projections for this week, the weekend of October 18th and into the following week. We're looking at peak color across pretty much the entire mountains. The entire Blue Ridge Parkway is going to be just illuminated in those reds and oranges and those beautiful colors that we like to see during this time of year. So we're really going to see some good color this weekend. Get out there and enjoy it, because this will be the last week in October 11th or October 18th weekend and into the following week. This will be kind of the last week for beautiful colors along the mountains. Now, I do want to zoom forward a little bit more to Lenore, Hickory, Shelby, some of those spots there. We'll start seeing more moderate to high color in those spots. I mean, this includes areas like Hendersonville, Spartanburg area, Morganton, Newton, Statesville. Some of those spots will also start to see some of those moderate to high color ranges as well. So still could get really beautiful flat rocks. Some of those spots, some of those lower elevations just outside of the mountains are going to start to pop a bit too. Not going to be as widespread, not going to be as peak as the mountains for the weekend of October 18th, but we're still going to be seeing some of those good scenes. Charlotte, point south and east of I-85, we got to wait a little bit longer. We got to wait at least until, I would say, early to mid-November until we start seeing the peak colors here towards the Queen City. Hopefully you enjoyed our episode today and got some wildfire awareness, not to mention, hopefully you get out and get a chance to view some of those beautiful fall colors in the mountains as we go into the weekend of October 18th. I am meteorologist Brandon Lawson. Want to leave you a look from the high country. Fall colors peeking in the mountains here. Get out there and enjoy it and take some pictures. Send them our way too if you can. We definitely would enjoy putting some of those on here for you. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson here on Pinpoint Weather University for Queen City News Plus.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.